Hey, welcome back. Well, recently, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced new commitments to further invest in Black entrepreneurs across all 5 boroughs in New York City. The BE NYC Initiative is the first of its kind model, which aims at increasing the number of Black-owned businesses in New York City with a focus on growing businesses in high-growth industries as part of the city's commitment to close the racial gap and support Black-owned businesses. The Department of Small Business Services is releasing the landmark Black programs for business owners, and the report highlights the challenges Black entrepreneurs face when starting and growing their own businesses. Our next guest is the co-founder and CEO of TresseNoire, which is a beauty tech startup empowering women of color to celebrate their textured hair with a personalized beauty routine that works. She's also the co-creator of Black Women Talk Tech, which is the largest membership organization of Black women tech entrepreneurs and the only conference designed for that in the community. Well, joining us to provide their point of view on this matter, I am pleased to be joined by the BE NYC Cabinet member, as well as co-founder of Black Women Talk Tech and TresseNoire, Regina Gwynn. And Regina, good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. It's an important discussion to have. I think when we talk about Black wealth and when we talk about entrepreneurship, the two go hand in hand, but so many times across the country, the two are distinctly different because of the fact that many times Black entrepreneurs and wealth, there's that gap. So give us a little bit about your company and how you decided to start this going.
Sure. So I launched TresseNoire in 2014 in a response to the frustration that I was having in just getting my hair done. Had gone to multiple hair salons. You're in a salon all day. You're bringing your laptop, food, water, computer, all types of things, and wanted to find a better way to kind of just give Black women back some time. There's so many things that we have to do every day, and worrying about how to get your hair done shouldn't be one of them. So we created a virtual beauty coach that takes our personalized data and combines it with our algorithm to provide product recommendations that are given by our network of stylists. So just making sure that, we can actually give women back the most important resource on earth, which is time. So going through that journey, going through that challenge, navigating this technology ecosystem, I had no idea what I was doing. Didn't know what a cap table was, didn't know what a tech stack was, wasn't familiar with technology languages and coding and engineering. But I knew I had an innovative idea that was disrupting an industry that largely, Black women consume 9 times more personal care products than our counterparts, and really drives an $11 billion industry. And so it was going through that journey that I realized that there was much more opportunity for women to be resourced much better in starting their technology companies. And that was the impetus behind creating Black Women Talk Tech. So myself and 2 other co-founders, Sosa Ighodaro and Lauren Washington, we all are tech founders ourselves, and decided to create this collective of Black women tech entrepreneurs that are focused on building billion-dollar businesses. And that's through looking at education, promoting and changing the idea of what a founder looks like, along with promoting the idea that that innovation comes from everywhere, grounding that with research and ultimately funding. There's definitely a huge challenge to getting access to capital for Black businesses and for Black technology companies in particular. So we want to make sure that we're highlighting these initiatives, and that, with working with the city of New York has been amazing in bringing some of those challenges to light.
Yeah. Well, talk to us about starting from the bottom and now you're here, right? Because you start at the bottom and you really, you said there's some things I just really don't know. Walk us through the challenges that you have in terms of getting to the place of owning your own business and then really crossing that tech divide. Because you said there's a lot of things that I became accustomed to that I really didn't know anything about.
Right. Absolutely. So, I think being a student, just going back and eating a bunch of humble pie, and saying, I don't know, I think is step one. I've gone to tons of conferences. We've participated in several accelerators in the New York area. We've been really, really lucky and fortunate to connect with investors who believed in our mission and our vision, as well as understanding the market and understanding the product that you have is extremely valuable. Those are some of the first things, that framework and kind of mindset that I had to get into in order to continue to push through, asking the questions that are uncomfortable, and spending, unfortunately, a lot of money. There were a lot of failures in the very beginning. Looking at or finding the right, coding languages, finding the right infrastructures to even build your startup is very challenging. And without that technical support early on, there were definitely a lot of missteps. So I'm thankful for the technical lead that I have, who's actually based in the Bronx, and someone that I really trust with the system that we have now. But it's not easy. There's a lot of knowing, being comfortable with being uncomfortable is part of the challenge of being an entrepreneur in general. And then also understanding from a technical perspective, what are the resources that you need to identify? Again, I'm not a coder by trade. I know enough now to be dangerous, but knowing that you need to fill those skill sets, needing to fill those gaps in what you don't know is extremely important. So connecting to the tons of resources that are available within the city of New York, I think it was very critical for me, going to meetups, going to conferences, finding the right people, networking a ton, telling everyone about my business. I talked about my business constantly because you just never know who knows someone who can help. And Black Women Talk Tech has also been an amazing resource, finding other like-minded entrepreneurs that are all working on something that does not exist currently. If it existed, then, it wouldn't be hard, right? You'd have a blueprint, you'd know what steps you're taking in order to get to your goal, and you'd understand what good looks like. But you're crafting these innovations from scratch. So being able to be around like-minded people was super important, and it continues to be. I continue to have advisors and mentors and masterminds and groups of women and men that help me think through what is the best way forward and how are we monetizing these opportunities for commercial success.
But talk to me a little bit about the obstacles, right? Because one of the goals is to really close the digital divide. And
Yes.
that divide is huge. And when it comes to African Americans, when it comes to communities of color, we know that we're on the other end of the spectrum when it comes to dealing with that digital divide. You had an intent in mind of saying, listen, I'm going to use my company, I'm going to use my business, I'm going to put networking together, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to close the digital divide. Give me a little bit about how hard or how wide is the divide?
Oh, definitely. So just to give you an idea, let me tell you, just to give you an idea, Black women raised 0.02% of venture capital funding here in the US. And that translates to about $45,000 versus $1.1 million on average that a white male investor can generate in venture capital funding in their initial raise. So the gap is significant. $45,000 versus $1.1 million is a lot of money. And when we think about how we're using those dollars, right? So technology is not cheap. To pay an engineer, to pay a product developer, to pay a user research, user experience, UX, UI types of team members, these are people that need money. There's not a bartering system that you can create, which is oftentimes why it is important to have technical resources on your founding team. A founder who is also an engineer, a co-founder who's also can be your CTO, your chief technology officer, is really important. Friends and family round, which could be anywhere between $250,000 to $500,000. It's called a friends and family round because traditionally your friends and family help you raise that money, right? You get a loan, you get money from your parents or from your aunts and uncles and from your friends. And so I don't know about you, but I don't have friends and family that are giving me $500,000 to start a business. And so I think therein lies the challenges where, particularly for entrepreneurs of color, we are put at a disadvantage from the beginning. So it's hard to overcome that type of gap in the beginning because you're constantly behind in terms of the resources that you're using that traditionally could be offered for free or could be available within your family. If you don't have a family member who's a coder or an engineer that helps you build your first website for free, if you don't have accountants and lawyers and bookkeepers and graphic designers in your family, you're paying for those things from the door. So from the outset, you are putting out money and you're bootstrapping in light of the lack of funding in several different ways, not just the money, but also the additional resources. So the gap is pretty significant.
Yeah, and so here comes the mayor. The mayor says, listen, I'm going to, create this initiative to really fund and make sure that Black businesses get their fair share and have an opportunity. So give me your thoughts about the mayor and this initiative. Some people say, listen, it's long overdue, but some people say, I'm glad it's here.
Absolutely. So we're really excited about the work that's been done with the city of New York. The report that was generated from over 1,500 entrepreneurs across the city really gave us a lens into, the unique challenges that are faced for those that are, in these 5 boroughs. And the one of the first initiatives that's part of this program is an accelerator, which I'm really excited about, because oftentimes you've got these great ideas, but how are you actually making them happen, right? Like, there's one thing to say, okay, I have a great idea, but there's another thing to actually put the resources behind it to actually make that work. So a $3 million initiative is being dedicated to an accelerator program specifically in New York that's cultivating small businesses. This is also put into place with a lens towards technology. So how are we thinking about small business and scaling it to think like a tech startup? This is the part that I think that was really interesting in terms of the report that showed that there are tons of small businesses, but there's still this digital divide, right? So you've got this great idea and you've got a local business, but this business could be international. It could be global if we think about infusing a tech perspective and an infrastructure that can allow them to make even more money outside of just their local area.
And so when we talk about African Americans, communities of color being involved in tech, obviously there are a lot of people who are out there, a lot not doing it at the level that you're doing it. So give a piece of advice to somebody who really wants to take it to that level, but maybe frustrated with the process, because when we know, trying to get involved, trying to raise money, trying to get your business going, it's very painful sometimes. Yeah. And as you said, failure is the order of the day, but some people just don't have the capacity to deal with failure. Other people say, listen, when it comes to failure, I really don't want to go through that, but we know that that's a part of the business process. But for somebody who's watching right now and considering tech, because they do technically see a lot of people who don't look like us in the tech field. But the reality is there's so many people who are working in communities of color trying to advance in the world of technology.
Absolutely. So, it is not easy. I am not going to sugarcoat anything. Building a startup is hard, whether it's technology or not. Building a startup is hard. However, part of your entrepreneurial journey has to incorporate the hustle. And the beauty of New York is that there are a ton of resources available there. If you do become immersed into this culture and connected into this network, you will find the resources that you need. It won't just be served up to you on a silver platter. But I do think that not only the city of New York, but New York Tech Meetup, Black Women Talk Tech, Black Men Talk Tech. There are tons of organizations that are dedicated to getting Black businesses the resources that they need. So I think step one is to follow us on blackwomentalktech.com, but also think about what you need and why do you need it. Part of the piece of the puzzle is really just getting smart on what you need and what you don't need. So taking it step by step. Putting one foot in front of the other, but more importantly, do it. Instead of waiting, don't overthink it. You have the tools and you have the intelligence and the idea to make it happen right now. And that's the part that I really want to drive home today.
Right. What would you consider, the turning point for you in your business career?
there were a couple of, I think that I had two points in this journey that are of note. The first of which was my participation in the Google for Startups entrepreneur program for Black founders.
Mm-hmm.
That was, transformational. The resources and the connections that I made during that program really helped TresseNoire refine its business strategy, really hone its message, and really put us on, that track to future growth. We also landed our second major investor during that program. So that was amazing. So that's also why I understand the value of accelerators. And I think, having this accelerator program, supported by the city of New York is again, just like super smart, and I'm excited about that. And then I'd say the second inflection point was working with Black Women Talk Tech in 2019, I'd say. I guess seems so long ago, but 2019, our conference that we hosted in New York was really, the first time we brought, over 1,000 people together. We started Black Women Talk Tech in a small conference room, gathering 30 or 40 women in 2017 to talk about, their challenges in being a Black woman-led tech startup. And fast forward just 2 years later, we had over 1,200, a little over 1,000 people, engineers, entrepreneurs, technologists, investors, again, really highlighting and shining a real light on what we were doing and the innovations that were still happening and performing well in spite of that funding gap that I mentioned earlier. And so that was kind of like a wake-up call. It was like, okay, we're really here. We're here in numbers. These innovations are viable. And I think that that's the part that it made also investors and companies take notice. And so the conversations that we're having now are really valuable. People are, really reaching out, not only talking about how can I help, but how can I invest? These are untapped markets and untapped opportunities that savvy investors would do well to invest now and to get on the ground floor. Imagine, an investor who was the first money in at Uber, and the first money in at Facebook, and the first money in at Airbnb. These investors have made significant returns as a result of those, early bets. And so we have now created a community of women that you would do well to bet on early.
Regina Gwynn, thank you. We got to leave it there. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Congratulations on all the success that you had, and hopefully you'll come back and visit us again on the Social Justice Forums.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you. All right, Regina Gwynn, our guest here on the Social Justice Forum. Listen, I want you to stay with us. We do have more show coming up. We'll be right back right after this.